I wasn't too freaked out because it's had some parallels with things I'd done before, but it was certainly a much bigger extension of it and took me a step beyond the kind of things that I've tried to do with students before. So it was probably just stirred my thinking about how the parameters I put around kids in terms of setting the task and me doing all the work to scaffold things for them the whole way through. So this is a way of me stepping into a bigger void than I'd tried to step into before. I think number one, because music kids are really easy to work with. Maybe Euro kids are, but music kids are really easy to work with, and if you tell them we're going off in this direction, they'll follow you and they'll be up for anything that you really want to take on. And also because the rest of the week we work in a really prescribed fashion. We do theory on one day and you try and make that as interactive as you can, and then we do a prac lesson, which is there's some scope for them to be able to have some sort of autonomy about it. And this is the one opportunity in the week where you can just go for it. It's also Friday afternoon lesson 6, so you've got to think, well, I've got to do something that's really going to get the kids involved in something that's active for them. The general idea was media is nothing without music. That was the big idea we came up with. And so in the first stages of this design process was kids exploring using questioning dice, how you could frame that into a question that kind of made sense to them. So then generally the class came up with, how can I show that media is nothing without music? I was really expecting they would learn more intently about to explore what the purposes of music were and how you can, the function of music to heighten other experiences that you can have, and in this case particularly through media. So everyone has a different response to music, and so this was really trying to hone their listening and their thinking into what's the purpose of music, and that little bit there, what does it make me think of, what does it match with something other else, and how can it's sort of showing that personal interpretation of it. But that was part of it, and it was also the trying to really push, as I said before, their autonomy and their responsibility for the outcome, because I wasn't going to be prescribing it. So in terms of the curriculum, it's trying to take the curriculum and, for me, turn it on its head a bit and give it a completely different focus. I suppose the other thing I was looking for in terms of the curriculum was having a sense of uncomfortableness. Like, it was uncomfortable for me to be in a situation where I didn't have my tunnel vision. This is where I know we're going to be at the end, and this is the kind of product I expect to see. So uncomfortable for me because I was flying blind, and uncomfortable for the students because there were some parameters, but I was trying to make it open-ended so that they would have to think laterally about what they were doing, and they would have to be accountable for what they did in the process. Yes, so as Year 9s, they're not the most organised people, but they had to, there were some structured activities in the classroom when they were asking other people for feedback, or having to work in smaller groups and to really prescribe what groups they were in. But then once they went to the final task, then they were on their own, and then they had to show that work to the class, and then got feedback from the class about what worked well and what didn't work well. And then in the end we also did just using sticky notes, they picked the best 3 just by writing their names on a piece of paper and giving them to me, to give me another way of their perceptions about what they thought were the ranking order in terms of which best met the sort of criteria that we'd set out in the rubric.
We started by brainstorming like different types of media, and then we did different music in the media, and then we thought of different questions about how music enhances media, or like why does it enhance it or something. And then we had to make a video that showed music and media working together.
So over here, I certainly started with this initial provocation, which was media is nothing without music, and that was devised in conversations with Nick and took that to the class. This one part we did when you were activities to develop empathy. For me, that just meant understanding the concept, and we did a lot of brainstorming about what media is, what music is, what connections there could be. I would say that's probably the part that I spent too long on, because in fact the kids were probably much savvier about that, but they probably never had to be as articulate about it as they were in that process there. So then we got to the point that we came up with our line of inquiry, and we formed the question that we're going to go with. Then I got them, this is probably the part they found the hardest, was trying to then explore how they could then interpret that idea. A lot of them were coming up with, I'm going to take one piece of footage and I'm going to put the different music behind it. And in the end that was the final result. But a lot of the boys did people scoring soccer goals and then change different music to sort of highlight the different parts of it. I probably didn't do this because we had Year 9 Activities Week, and so we lost the opportunity to sort of really get them to put something in writing to me to say, here is my plan. They had to do a storyboard, but I didn't necessarily, that's the part I probably could have tightened up a lot more. They then went into a feedback session. So in this process here, there are several opportunities to get feedback, and part of that they did in one session where they worked in threes to give feedback about ideas, but that's probably the part that I would do better next time, was to get them to give each other feedback a lot more about where they're up to so far, and to come up with ideas and look at the problem solving that they were having to do in the process, because that was actually a huge part of learning video editing and learning audio editing. And again, another part I probably could have scaffolded better for them. So we probably did less of this critique refine because I missed lots of Fridays, they were away, and we kind of lost the thread of what we were doing. If you were doing it in a block time, that part of it would be much better, because you're focused on a consistent activity over a couple of weeks, whereas this is just one lesson a week over a longer period of time. So that's probably the part that was muddiest. And then we got to the end and we had a show and tell on a Friday afternoon. It was like going to a little film festival, because I was completely blown away.
What do you guys expect to learn in the course, and where do you feel the course is heading?
Looking at maybe industry in the future and how best media will influence the industry of media.
Even just making general connections with the world that's around you and the way that you use music. So if you're using both of them, it's good to have that understanding of what's in your life, through media and through music. You can sort of relate those two together.
Okay, so how was this different from a typical lesson that you go into?
This was different because there wasn't like a set task, like a set assignment. We had to think of how we were going to show music and media together.
Did anything you learned in the course shocked you or changed your views on the subject?
Not really.
So is everything you sort of expected?
No, it's more of for me, it's more of a sort of going into that more detail about what, because we already knew those sort of things about how media is affecting, or about media and music together, but it's good to sort of have those discussions about it and go in depth about it.
Finally, do you think the teacher could have taught anything differently, or changed the way she approached some subjects?
No, I think I like the open discussions. That's my preference of how I like to.
More listening and seeing the changes rather than just talking.
I reckon, mind mapping things, like really showing it to people so that it's quite obvious, and if someone doesn't understand, really make that clear, try another way of explaining it to someone so they're able to have a better understanding. Yeah.
I guess because music is a more audio thingy words, because you hear it, then it's more important that you can hear and see it rather than just talking about it, because if you're talking about it you can't really get the full idea of what's going on.
Okay, so by the end of it then, when you got all the work from the kids and you'd had time to reflect, what were your thoughts?
probably did a lot of smiling because the diversity of ideas, the breadth of ideas, the problem solving that they had done was way beyond what I perceived their capacity to be. It was the creativity and the level of understanding about music that struck me most, because students knew that if they found audio online and put that to the music, that they would be successful because they would pass. But there was a component that said if you're creative and you created your own music to match the video, then you were pushing yourself up in the grades. And so the few students who did go to GarageBand or their own kind of software and created specific music for the video were the ones who, were kind of off the scale for me in terms of what I expected. So there was a range, but there was scope for people to go over the top or for people just to play safe and do things. And the two mind-blowing ones was someone who recorded herself on roller skates, but just making individual sounds and then creating a whole ostinato pattern with it, which took a lot of editing skills. Now, it mightn't have met my original idea of what it meant, but I could see how she had interpreted it in a way that I would never have thought of.
So is it the creativity that increased significantly, or was there more than that? What about the depth of understanding of
it was definitely both those things. One was the creativity. Someone did a parody of Abbott's last speech, and every kid understood the context of what was being done there and laughed in the process.
This is not an easy day for many people in this building. Leadership changes are never easy for our country. My pledge today is to make this change as easy as I can.
So one of it was the creativity, but also the capacity to hear sound and interpret that sound in a new way and put it into a new context. I think that's probably I would never have achieved. I don't think I would ever have achieved that if I'd set the task up differently.
Put the students into group, low ability, middle ability, medium ability, high ability.
Yeah.
How did those groups fare?
My high-end kids went off the deep end in terms of their creativity and their ability to show that sort of level of interpretation. Some of my lower-end kids jumped significantly because they were able to use a whole other way of showing their understanding that they don't if I ask them to do something in writing. But in fact, their written feedback was really quite useful as well. And I'd say most of my middle of the road kids probably went slightly higher.
Was that one of the issues when people were coming to you and being exposed to this for the first time? Did that create problems?
Yes, I think there was the I'm lost kind of moments for the kids, thinking, well, she hasn't told me what she wants me to do, and so what will I do now? I'll go and chat with my friend. So you kind of have to. That's probably the flaw in what I did, is I wasn't around enough to keep having the conversation. So where are you up to with what you're doing, and trying to help them do the problem solving without jumping in entirely.
So when you say you weren't around enough, can you tell us more?
Just because I kind of got them set up for the first few weeks, and then I was away and had to sort of give the instructions via day map, and then if the relief teacher didn't make sure the kids knew what they were doing, then they could just,
So that created an issue with
that created an issue because maybe the relief teacher wasn't clear, didn't follow the instructions, but the guidelines were, you've got this job to do, and if you didn't know where to start, then well, I'm just going to, pretend I'm doing something.
Okay.
If I was in a different subject where you kind of do, here's this topic and here's this topic, I'd say, beauty, we're going to have 3 weeks or something where we're full on working on this idea for this period of time, and you get much more continuity with the kids than jumping from one, what did we do last Friday? It's a whole week in between. So it'd be much more effective if you blocked the time to do this kind of task.
So would it be fair to say that it'd be more effective if it was more immersive, and
yes,
if more people were doing it throughout the school?
Yes, I think it's a fantastic. Like you're not doing this all the time with everything that you're doing, and I couldn't do that within music because I wouldn't be able to get through other parts of my curriculum. But if I had blocks of time, if I was an English teacher, then I might say, right, well, for 3 weeks we're going to be doing something that's much more open-ended to sort of really push that level of ownership that kids have over what they're doing.